Guys, I don't know if we should call this a quarantine quick out the blocks or a quarantine quick blitz. We may be joined a little bit later by Vashti of Carolina Blitz, also known as Keep Blitzing on Twitter. But right now, we have Rod Walker, New Orleans Saints beat writer for The Advocate. Man, y'all have been busy in the Bayou, man.
I'm just surprised you got a New Orleans Saints writer on your first one, on your podcast.
Don't tell anybody, but I've always been intrigued by the Saints.
Okay.
You know, it's a very intriguing team and dynamic. I mean, I don't know if it's from the city. I love the city. I love all the culture in the city. And I've always thought that you guys were an entertaining team to watch. Now in the off season, first of all, your head coach catches COVID-19. You almost signed Cam Newton, but instead get another NFC South quarterback, Jameis Winston. Honestly, he got the Scottie Pippen contract of quarterbacks.
Yep.
He got the Scottie Pippen contract. But then today, Golden Boy, Drew Brees. What are your thoughts?
I guess my thoughts were sort of like everybody else's. I was surprised. I mean, someone sent me a text message and sent me the tweet first from the story.
Right.
It said the headline was something about what Drew says about the anthem or whatever.
Right.
I says, "Is this an old?" I figured it was an old story from 2017.
So time out. So he did come out and publicly make statements in 2017 at the height of the flag. And I'm sorry, not the flag, the anthem protest.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it was like it was a big deal back then too. It was a big story. You know, he basically said the same thing that he said today. It wasn't anything different. Right. So it was just surprising to see the timing of it. First of all, I mean,
it's horrible.
We've been watching the same. We've been watching the same thing for the past 9 days. So you would think if there was any time that someone would not say that, it would be now, and it wasn't. I mean, he came out and said in an interview with Yahoo. So it was surprising, and nobody could believe he really said it today.
Well, in addition to Drew, you had some teammates that were very, very vocal in where they stood. Michael Thomas, you had Cameron Jordan, Malcolm Jenkins. Did you get a chance to see some of Malcolm's comments?
I watched all of it. He had he posted his first video, and then he talked to Drew, I think he said. So he took the first one down because the first one he basically said, "Shut the F up, Drew." He took that one down.
He came back fast enough now because I saw right. They called that fast. I was like, whoa.
But then he came back with another one, and it was like it was actually emotional. I mean, I shed a tear watching it just because, I mean, we all know what's going on right now, and just to see the passion that he displayed in that one. It was like a 4-minute video, and he basically was, telling Drew why he shouldn't think that way. And I thought it was very powerful, and I think it's something that people who are watching, they'll understand the message, the ones who still don't get it. So hopefully that's what Malcolm's comments did. But when you look at just look at social media today, it wasn't just current teammates. There were guys who played with Drew back in 2006. Marcus Coastal was guys who came out and talked about it. So, I mean, it was like Mark Ingram, who doesn't even play anymore. He said something about it. He sort of responded to Aaron Rodgers' comments. So it's been the talk of New Orleans for sure, and across the country. I mean, LeBron weighed in on it. Aaron Rodgers weighed in on it. So it's been something to talk about today.
I mean, and it's just, I would not say shocking that he feels this way. It was, like I said, with for me, the timing was the absolute worst timing that it possibly could have been. I would think that we had moved past seeing the peaceful protest as an attack on the flag. I mean, it's an attack on the anthem, but how many people know those lost stanzas of the national anthem that are extremely racist? And if you knew the entire story, the entire song, I don't think there's one Black person that can justify, praising this anthem. It's not for us. Let's be real. It wasn't for us.
The thing is, if you listen to Drew's explanation, I mean, and this is the same thing he said back in 2017, he always goes back to, his grandparents fought in World War II, and that's just his thing. And it's something that most of us can't relate to it. I mean, whenever I hear someone who's that passionate about the flag or the anthem, like, it's just something I totally cannot relate to. And, just one of our differences that we'll have to try to understand, but we don't.
I'm sorry, I popped in. I'm sorry, guys.
Guys, there she is. I kind of gave you a little intro already.
I'm sorry, guys. I was trying to wrap up another podcast, and I said, dude, I have got to go, okay? And I don't know if y'all talked about this, but does Brees not have a certain responsibility to his teammates to try to at least understand where they're coming from and not have such a closed-minded perspective on things?
Yeah, he definitely had that responsibility. And even back in, I keep going back to 2017 because that's when all this stuff first came to the forefront. They had meetings and they tried to come together, and they came up with a compromise, which, that year they played the Falcons. I think it was the second week of the season. It was right before they played the Panthers in week 3.
Okay.
And the players, they did a little kneel before the anthem was played, and
that was a cop out.
It was watering down. Right,
oh my gosh, it was so lame.
Right.
It was such a cop out. I don't even remember it.
Yeah, but it got a lot of attention. Everybody was. If you're a kumbaya person, that was your thing. But it was
right.
But just yesterday, he posted a black box, which, trust me, this is why I hated that whole Blackout Tuesday movement, because I felt that it was too easy, and I felt that it was a cop-out, and I felt that people who weren't really true allies could say, oh, I'm supporting because I took a screenshot of a black box. So one day you posting a black box as if you understand the movement, and then the next day you say something that completely seems like you just don't get it.
And for the past 8 days, there were people, wanting to hear from him. Like, I wonder what Drew thinks about this. He's the leader of the team, so you just kind of want to hear something. And you didn't hear anything. Then all of a sudden you get the black box, which, some people are okay with that. But then you counter it with what you said today. So, and he was asked the question. So, he had to say something. And I guess that's how Drew feels. And his stance is not going to change on that. That's how he feels. And
well, more so than him having a responsibility to his team, Drew Brees has a responsibility to the entire city of New Orleans, the entire state of Louisiana. They hold him in such high regard. Panthers cornerback Dante Jackson spoke so highly of him. He talked about how he went into the community and, he did all this stuff to help families get over Katrina. I think for me, just the fact of how tone deaf the statements were, that was the shocking part to me. Not that he feels, that is disrespecting the flag. It's just the timing today with this going on in the current climate, all of your teammates that look like George Floyd, that outside of that uniform, outside of the facilities, this is their life.
Yeah, and that's what I talked about that in the column today, just that I wrote this evening, just how tone deaf it was. And I don't know what it's going to take for him to get it. And, I know there are going to be some players that are going to try to talk to him. And this is a Saints locker room that's really, really close-knit.
Right.
I always talk about how tight this group is. I don't know. I think it's going to be hard to get it back because I think this is just one of those things. And the timing of it, I think it just rubbed people the wrong way, as you saw on social media. And I don't know how you win that back.
That's what I was going to ask. How is it going to affect the Saints locker room? And that's what I'm seeing, because I posted Malcolm Jenkins' video, his original one, where he really spoke, where he really laid out how he felt, and then he put out one that may be a little more PC. But a lot of the comments were, oh well, Brees is done after. Guys aren't going to want to play for him or play with him. Players aren't going to want to block for him. So, how do you guys think that'll affect it?
I've been covering this team for a while.
Specifically, how is that going to affect the Brees to Michael Thomas connection that has been absolutely lethal?
They need each other. I don't know. I believe
that's a good question because they always compliment each other. Brees always brags on Mike, and I think at the end of the day they want to win, but it's hard to just put that in the back of your mind. I think. You've seen the videos of Drew Brees pregame. He's pumping the team up, and I think Malcolm mentioned today. Brees always talking about the brotherhood, but are these guys really a brother if you
No, if you can't understand the pain and the plight, that's not your brother. That's just your teammate. That's your coworker.
Yeah. And it's going to be the thing that's different this year, I guess, because Malcolm hadn't been here the past couple of years. Obviously, he's been in Philadelphia. And when he spoke out today, it was just kind of surprising because really nobody ever really, if Brees says something, everybody just sort of kind of stays quiet. And I'm sure they talk about it amongst themselves, but for someone to come out publicly like that, it was a surprise to a lot of people and probably needed. I mean, I think sometimes
let me ask you this, Rod. Malcolm, as you said, it was a surprise for somebody to come out and counter something that Drew Brees said, but as the leader of the Players Coalition, the anthem and the protests were a bone of contention in people, players that were a part of that coalition, more specifically Eric Reed and Malcolm Jenkins. We saw that play out a couple seasons ago when the Panthers went up to Philly. I think that because of his status in the coalition, he had to say something.
Yeah. Well, you say that, but I mean, you look at DeMario Davis is also on the Saints. I mean, he's been here for the past. This will be his third season, and even in the past, I mean, he didn't come out. He spoke out about it, and I'm sure him and Brees talked about it. But for someone to be as vocal as Malcolm was just different.
Do you mean like him cursing, or even the strength behind his statement?
Well, I mean the strength behind. I didn't take the cursing out. I mean just to come out and call him out. Basically, I mean that doesn't really happen. Most times people won't say that. And even Michael Thomas surprises because they're so close knit. And Michael didn't say anything. I mean, I just saw a few emojis.
What did he say? He was ignorant or something, or he doesn't know any better?
He didn't know any better. That's what he said. Yeah. So I mean, even for him to say that was a lot because the same perception that y'all think that people have for Brees here. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, he's a beloved figurehead, and people rarely question what he says or does.
Cam Jordan said, I think he tweeted for him to be a better ally. And then he also said, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but this ain't it. Does it seemingly denounce the focal point of the intended kneeling, what the intended kneeling was meant for? Yes. And that was in response to another.
Marcus Davenport.
Right. He had tweeted something almost in support. I don't know if it was in support, but it was in understanding, I guess, or saying that.
And when I saw that, I mean, Marcus Davenport, he's a younger player. It's his third year in the season.
Right,
I think when it comes to issues like this, I think it takes players, especially younger players, I think it takes you time to sort of find your voice and how to respond to that. And I think Marcus was probably, just kind of sticking up for his teammate and saying, "Oh, I get it." And
this ain't it, though.
Right. It definitely isn't. And I don't couple with what exactly is going on right now as we speak. That's going to be hard to come back from. And again, I mean, you're in New Orleans.
Right.
You're not going to be,
you're not
going to be scooting Young Jockey next season. I mean.
But that's my thing. You can be such a fan. Like New Orleans, their whole vibe.
They are.
Last year was my first time covering a game in Mercedes-Benz Dome. The whole vibe is centered around Blackness and Black culture and the music and the dancing and everything, even the media food, like everything is centered around, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How can you embrace Black culture so much and not be not defend it in a way where you would want to protect the lives that support that culture? And then
ESPN did almost like a follow-up story, like basically asking them, almost like, is that what you really meant? But anyway, I think, and I haven't even read the whole story yet, but I know Brees sort of talked about his some of the other work he's done. I mean, like the money he's given to different things, but at the end of the day, it's also about what you say. It's not just what you do. I mean, you need to support these guys who are having these issues and want to have themselves heard.
I almost think your voice is stronger than the money that you throw sometimes. Like, you can donate and that's kind of a passive way to show support. And you could be donating to, something else and counter donating to another organization, just like these corporations. They'll donate to both Republican and Democratic, campaigns so that they can say, "Oh, I had your back then," if either of them win. But to me, this says more than, okay, I donated or I built this house in New Orleans or I did this and this and that. You know, did you do that just for the image? Because in the back of your mind, your viewpoints don't align with your service. Your service should be an extension of your heart and your mindset. And if your heart and mindset aren't aligned with your service, then you're just doing it for kicks and giggles. You're doing it to say, oh, okay, well, I'm not racist because I built this house in a poor Black community. So I'm good, you know, or I'm not a bad person, even though my views are very questionable because I gave this organization money. Yeah, okay, guess what? My grandfather fought in a war too. And when he came back, he was still discriminated against.
Thanks.
I saw a tweet where a guy said, yeah, my grandfather fought in World War II. And when he came back, he was able to use the GI Bill in order to go to medical school. And he set up generational wealth for the rest of our family. But other Black men weren't privy to that GI Bill. So right. You really have to understand the plight of Black people. And to me, as an athlete on a team where 70% of the guys that you line up with understand that plight and you are completely ignoring it, it is a slap in the face. It is a complete slap in the face. And it's disappointing, like, that he would still come out so strong. Even the president that he may or may not support, everybody's all peaceful protest. Okay, well, what was Colin Kaepernick doing?
Exactly.
It was a peaceful protest. And now we see everybody kneeling. Oh, I'm disgusted.
I think some people, they just are so far removed from
reality.
What we go through.
Yeah.
They just don't get it. They don't have, there are people, and I'm not saying Drew's this way, but I know a lot of people who, outside of working with sports, they never interact with Black people. So they don't hear the stories. I wrote a column today, yesterday, I guess, about why we shouldn't just shut up in sports, because it was an eye-opener to a lot of people, because I mentioned how Black parents have to have a talk with their boys. You know, they have to explain to them, you know, this is what you do at the police con. And when the feedback I got today, I could tell that a lot of white people had no clue what the talk was, because they don't have to do that. And it opened a lot of eyes, I think, and I just think that's what it's going to take, is for them to realize that, you know, these are real issues, and just because we don't face them don't mean they don't exist.
But you have to want to realize them too.
Yeah.
Right. You got to be willing to listen.
Unfortunately, we've seen a lot of innocent, unarmed Black people die on camera. George Floyd was different. This wasn't a rash, let me hurry up and get my gun out, boom, boom, boom. We literally saw the life drain from this man's face. We heard him cry out for his mother. And the guy just callously kept his knee on his neck. That, to me, and not to say that everyone else that have no one else's case is pale in comparison by any means. This was different. Hence why we're getting this different response. And I can only hope that this extends beyond the arrest. I hope that this ends in a conviction. Something needs to change. You know, it gets to the point where, you know, like Rod said, I have 3 boys. You know, I got a 4-year-old who's just happy-go-lucky. He don't know what's going on. I got a 12-year-old who's kind of learning what's going on. And I have a 14-year-old that was battling with anxiety coming into last week. So that didn't do anything to help. You know, these kids have been in the house for 3 months now almost. So they're counting on social media. They're counting on their laptops. They're counting on all these different ways to keep themselves entertained. So they're locked into this even more. So many of these videos and pictures are triggering and things like that. And it sucks. I mean, I'm pretty sure I have experienced racism, but never outright to my face, like, you're a nigger, none of that. By the age of 12, both of my kids had.
Are you really?
In Charlotte Mecklenburg schools. Andrew was in the 5th grade, and his teacher called me in tears because an Asian kid called him the N-word.
Don't get me started.
The very next year, last year actually, you know, they have these Chromebooks. They leave them at school at the end of the day, so you really don't know as a parent what they're doing during the day. They were on the subject matter of slavery. And my son's so-called friend photoshopped his head onto a slave. Now, I will say this. I will say that the administration was very quick and they were very swift in punishment. You know, they let me know what happened. But the biggest thing that stood out to me is when the principal said he apologized. And I told Trey he does not have to accept the apology. It is okay to let someone know that they're out of line and they're out of pocket. And it sucks. But the sad reality is, no, you can't go hang out at the mall with your friends and y'all aren't buying anything because you don't look like them. So if someone thinks y'all are trespassing, that's a whole different conversation with you, and you could end up not making it back home. It's sad, but it's a really, really tough reality. And honestly, I really haven't been myself in like a week because I'm like, how do you have this conversation without terrifying them? But it's a conversation that has to be had.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
You talked about the video and just how powerful it was. And I mean, you've seen the impact because you've seen more white people this time speak up than ever before. Yeah. And I think I kind of compared to back when Emmett Till's mom made them keep the casket open. She wanted the whole country to see it. To me, that's what this, I mean, obviously it's totally different, but I think this is going to have that same impact. I think years from now, this is going to be the story that, you know, this is going to be almost our Emmett Till story, the one that sort of woke people up.
Yeah. This is why it's so important. And Matt Rule gave a press conference today. And he said the right things.
He always does.
That's for another show, Sheena. But he said that people are going to look back and want to know where you stood during this time. Yeah. Where did you stand during this time in history when everybody else was speaking out in defense of what was right when it comes to the treatment of Black people in this country? And Drew Brees showed what side he's standing on. And, you know, a part of me is like, okay, well, you know, you do all of these positive things for the community, but now at least I know where you stand. Yeah. And I can handle you accordingly. And maybe those guys in the locker room will feel the same way. Maybe I know now that black box that you posted on Tuesday was not a true representation of how you feel as a person. So, you know, at least the writing is on the wall. But I feel like it's important for us, given the impact of what this is having now and what it will probably have historically, for us to not sit on the sidelines. Sheena, that story that you told is extremely powerful, and it needs to be heard because, you know, I didn't know that.
Girl, and both of the kids that did this were minorities. They weren't even white. Well, one was half white and half Hispanic, and it was so interesting though, because when it happened with Trey, it was an open locker room day, and it was Eric Reed's first week. And I pulled him to the side and I asked him about it. And I was like, you know, your kids are a little bit younger right now, so you may not have had to have D-talk yet, but what do we tell our young Black men that, you know, I'm not even going to front. I work really hard to put my kids in a neighborhood where they're supposed to thrive. But honestly, Black kids aren't welcome anywhere. In the so-called hood, you got Black on Black crime. But then I couldn't find my kids jogging a week and a half ago, and I was more terrified than I would have been if we were in a predominantly Black neighborhood. I mean, I was sick to my stomach driving around looking for my kids because I know they're 12 and 14, but we had just moved into this house and settled into this house shortly before COVID struck. So we don't know a lot of people in the neighborhood, and we had jogged out pretty far. So, I mean, as much as things have changed, they stay the same. My world is different because I'm a Black woman. You know? So but that talk with Eric Reed definitely made me always have respect for him. So basically he just talked about how touching on the history, but not really grasping Black history in schools opens the door for things like that. Because like I said, the history lesson was on slavery. And the fact that these white kids thought that it was a laughing matter to the point where they were going to Photoshop something, you know, he basically just reiterated how much we have to take the history into our own hands to teach our children the stuff that's not in textbooks. You know, I definitely think that over the last 6 years since the Mike Brown killing, that's something that needs to be in history books. That's defining our nation. You know, Black Lives Matter outside of sporting venues. When you take that uniform off, you Black. So in a sense, there are some Black athletes that, you know, I'm not Black, I'm OJ, that felt like, oh, okay, well, that's not my life. That's not my everyday life, but it could be. How many times do we hear about NFL players getting stopped and frisked or racially profiled because they wear helmets? They're not readily recognizable by a lot of people.
That brings up another question that I was asked today, and I kind of struggled with it. What responsibility do we put on athletes to be those guys to say something? Do they have a responsibility to, or is it, you know?
I think they have a responsibility, and I think just depending on how comfortable you are with it, that determines how responsible you are. I mean, some guys aren't comfortable, doing that. And I hate to bring up a Carolina guy, but I don't think Michael Jordan was. I don't know if that was his thing. So he sort of shied away from it back then. And but I do think they have a responsibility if that's who they are. And again, some people just aren't wired that way, and you shouldn't make somebody do something they don't want to do. And if they're not comfortable with it, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still them. And some people may want to just do it by donating money. Some might want to be more outspoken, but I think you have to leave that up to the individual.
And I know this is so much to impact. We don't want to run out of time, but before we go, Rod, if you're Sean Payton, what's your next move?
I think they're going to they'll have a team meeting at some point. I don't know when they'll get together again, but I mean, I think you have to address it. And I know you have to address it. He has to know the dynamics of his locker room to figure out how to do that, but it has to be addressed at some point. If not, it's just going to be a big elephant in the room, and you can't have that, for a whole season. And this is a team with really high expectations. So, I mean, you don't want something like this to be the thing that derails this team from, reaching its goals. So, I'm sure Drew has seen all the stuff on social media from players, current and past. And I think the ones, just seeing these past guys that he's really connected to, like Marcus Colston was talking about how hurt he was, how disappointed he was. I would think that bothers Drew to see those guys saying that. And I think he may be the one who, initiates whatever action they take as far as trying to fix it.
I think that this situation is different than Riley Cooper. Remember what Riley Cooper did? And then they had Michael Vick rally around him, and whatever happened in that Philly locker room. But it wasn't the same. The timing is absolutely terrible.
Right.
The timing is absolutely terrible. And this is a time when, things are really brought to the forefront. And for you to continue to perpetuate that and not, it's just his timing is bad. And I think that that's probably one of the reasons why we're seeing so many players speak out like, okay, this is not during the season and something pops off. There is literally a movement going on, and we see that you aren't an ally. So if we have two sides on this coin, you're not on the same side as me. So what are we now at this point?
And that's basically what Malcolm said. We can't just be, you can't be our brother just on the field. We need to know you got our back when we take these shoulder pads and helmets off. So that's the problem. And again, I don't know how long it's going to carry on, but I mean, I think it's something that could definitely linger.
Do we have time for one more quick question I wanted to ask you guys? Because
I think so. Hopefully it don't cut us off. I think we got time. I think we allocated like 40 minutes to it.
Dabo been sliding under the radar. Okay, so let's bring him back up real quick, because he's sure been, I know this whole thing with Drew Brees was probably the best thing that could have happened to him, because people were about to call him to task for that. How do you guys feel about Dabo and that and the coach and what happened at Clemson?
I think, are you talking about the statement he made and all that?
Well, the whole situation about the coach and the heated argument, his use of the N-word, and then Dabo's statement, and Well, Dabo made the statement first. For those who didn't know, Dabo made a statement, which was a very Dabo-ish statement about everybody needs to love, and we all know about his faith and his Christianity. And then a player called him out and said, basically, you capping because you didn't say anything when a coach used the N-word with a player in a situation. And then it comes to find out that this actually happened, in 2016, where there was an altercation with the player and the coach, and then the player was off to the side and he used the N-word with a teammate. And then the coach used the N-word in communicating with the teammate, supposedly in chastisement. And so then that assistant coach has now come out and apologized and said that he should not have used it. We haven't heard anything from Dabo since his Kumbaya Martin Luther King moment on what was that? Not the day before yesterday.
I wasn't aware of all that.
Oh, you weren't? For real?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But to be fair, it's been a lot of stuff happening.
It has been.
Today was like
it's been a lot. It's been a lot, and that's why I think it's been a lot. And I only have been following this because it's something Carolina related, but a lot of questions have been asked because the issue wasn't addressed. And another player said that players wanted to join in on students who were protesting something on the school, something on the Clemson campus. Probably, I think that was race related, and they were discouraged from doing so by Dabo. So, I mean, if we're calling people to task, and we having this is you type moment, Dabo's flying under the radar.
Well, he has been flying under the radar, and it's a little shocking because people have been trying to pull his card for years. He's always had little slip-ups and here and there comments that were ill-advised, that were uncouth, rather. And he had been kind of sliding under the radar for a minute.
I think when you're using the faith and Christian card, sometimes I think sometimes people sort of let you slide with stuff that probably shouldn't. And I think even reading his statement yesterday or whenever it was, I mean, it seemed like he wasn't really making a statement to support anything. It was just a statement to say he was making one. And, you can say throw out all those little words, key words he was using. And people say, okay, he said something, and that's just where he stands. He's not going to take a stand, it doesn't seem like.
Dabo's the type of person, he's going to straddle that fence.
Right.
And he's going to use Christianity in order to appeal to that Southern Black mama who is, who clings to that. And that's an important aspect of her life. And he's going to play up the fact that how he's going to take care of these players and pull them under their wings. But, how does that translate once they're no longer players? I don't know. We do know Dabo's MO though, but he's not going to learn unless guys just stop committing to his program.
And sadly, that might not happen anytime soon because everybody's trying to better their situation, which brings us to another subject. I mean, I think we might as well go ahead and go to 4 hour, y'all. I mean, we just started, but I see a lot of calls for Black athletes to transfer from D1 schools to HBCUs. What my stance on that is this. I was a D1 athlete, and in North Carolina, there's a lot of HBCUs in North and South Carolina and Virginia. I wasn't recruited by any of them, but I got 5 offers from ACC schools. So I think that sometimes HBCUs don't feel like they can compete with the bigger programs, so they simply don't.
Right.
And I feel like that's part of the problem. And do you think that the responsibilities of an entire race should fall on the shoulders of 17, 18-year-olds, that sport is going to change their lives, their families' lives, possibly their kids and their grandchildren? Is that a lot of responsibility to put on the shoulders of an 18-year-old? Because I know a lot of adults that wouldn't leave a surefire situation or a surefire job that may appeal to the masses more so than, you know, the dirty gritty jobs, the blue collar. You don't know a lot of people that are going to take white collar over blue collar. So how can you expect that of an 18-year-old? And I'm not comparing PWIs to HBCUs, but you know what I'm saying. Like, is that placing too much responsibility on these kids that, look, I know that you get the visibility with this team over or this school over here, but I need you to go here for the culture.
I think that is a big responsibility to put on a kid, but I also think, and it would take like a complete mind shift and for this to actually be effective, because everybody would have to do it for it to actually have the effects that you want it to have. And, you know, right now you look at it and say, oh, yeah, all the money's at the, you know, the ACC and the SEC schools, but if all these kids eventually did it, the money's going to follow them. The money's going to follow the talent. The scouts are going to follow the talent. But it is a big responsibility, and it would take a huge just shift in the way people think to even get to that point. It can't be one or two guys.
Right. It has to be everybody.
And I'm sorry. Mikey Williams, very highly touted recruit in high school basketball, tweeted the other day that going to HBCU might not be that bad. Now, I don't know if he's inspired by everything that's going on, but I think that college athletics has a problem, point blank, because of the whole D-League and their non-compensation thing. It's going to take, and everybody was like, I posted that tweet and everybody's like, oh yeah, this is a change in mindset that we need. Yeah, it sounds good. It sounds
great, yeah.
But have you ever seen the difference between Duke and NC Central? I mean, Duke is flying private. Central is not. They have catered food. It's completely different. It's completely different.
That's why it's hard.
It is hard, and it's a hard decision to put on a teenager. I think that I didn't go to a HBCU, but I'll admit I'm kind of jealous of those who did because of.
Didn't it look lit?
Yes. Did you go to one?
I didn't know.
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, homecomings, and I'm
lit,
like,
okay.
Wow, I'm jealous, and I think that probably culturally and experience wise, it would be different. It's going to take, like, Mikey played on LeBron's AAU team. It's going to have to take those guys to be in his ear like, okay, man, listen, this is what we need you to do. And we will support you and we will help your family like I'm sure they already are. But we will make sure that your family is good. But this is what we need. This is what we need you to do. And if with that backing and that support, if he does it, then maybe a next top 5 recruit does it. And then, okay, well, we're not going to team up and go to Duke. We're going to team up and go to Howard. DC popping. Howard is the top HBCU. Or we may team up and go to FAM, you know, and then that's kind of how it will trickle. But it's definitely going to take those old heads to kind of facilitate this, I think.
Sorry, I didn't know I was muted. But you mentioned something there, Vashti, with we're going to make sure your family's straight. Zion Williamson is in the news. They want him to go under oath to talk about disallowed benefits.
Not going to happen. Duke is a very, 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 very powerful school when it comes to college athletics. Coach K is a very, very, very powerful guy when it comes to college athletics. Trust me and believe. If anything happened, which it happens at every school. You're not going to be able to catch Coach K with his hand in the cookie jar. Right. If it happens, he stays so far removed from that stuff, Duke will not be like, it'll be, okay, well, y'all were over here enticing it. I had no idea what was going on.
Facts.
This was not on me. You guys were tampering with my players. Like, if you waiting on Coach K to catch it, and for Duke as a university to get caught slipping, as someone who covers that program, you better wait for another one, because it's not gonna happen. It's not. That thing is airtight.
And I don't know if the NCAA really wants to even catch them anyway.
No.
I mean, it's one of the blue bloods.
It's like, what is the point?
Right.
I mean, at this point, especially, he's not even in school anymore. Like,
first of all, to me, the what was it, an agent or whomever, that makes them look bad. They just look like the salty person. Oh, Zion didn't pick me, so I'm gonna go try to snitch. That's a punk move to me. Like, what's your point? You knew what the risks are. You ever dealt with the agent? High risk, potentially high reward. You invest in that kid and you hope that your investment will pay off and that kid signing with you. But you can't make that kid sign with you. It's illegal. What you doing already is illegal. So
right, so how are you going to say something?
You going to snitch on yourself? You mad.
I guess he like all of us going then.
I mean, that whole Zion thing, I mean, I get it, but I don't think anything is going to come from that. And Duke certainly won't be
penalized.
No, please. No.
Man, we had a lot to unpack today. So this was a loosely based podcast.
Loosely based.
It's crazy because, Sheena, people are always asking me, what are y'all doing with, there's no sports going on, so what are y'all writing about? And we've literally had something every single day. Like something just pops up. That's what sports does, I guess. So today it was Drew. I mean, Drew gave me something to talk about today. So
you know what was funny?
He gave you a lot to talk about.
Drew pissed the Saints fans off so bad they was begging for Cam Newton.
I saw that. Somebody said, "Oh, they're
they
going
were hot."
Drew and bring in Cam." I was like, well, what are y'all just look over Jameis? Like, what's wrong with Jameis?
I had a few he wanted Teddy back.
He took that. We were talking earlier. Jameis took that Scottie Pippen contract.
He sure did. They want Teddy back.
I saw somebody tweeting that, they were doing like a little Teddy chant.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Well, we'll see how. Well, I mean, listen, there may be a little conversation in the locker room. I don't think that this really affects them because I feel like when it comes to football, by the time the season starts, I don't expect things to be at a level as far as protesting and movement wise as they are right now. And we as a society, we move on to other stuff very quickly. As soon as something else happens, our attention is taken somewhere else. By the time training camp starts, the focus will be the Super Bowl. Now, people may have that in the back of their head, but it won't be at the forefront where they can't, okay, I'm going to table this for, he might not be able to come to the cookout.
He can't do chopper style no more. I know that.
Well,
you can't do that. Right.
Watch he do it though.
Not just our culture.
Watch he do it, and the New Orleans fans eat it up.
He better not. He better not rev that engine.
Watch.
But you made a good point because they're not going to be around each other until camp, so it gives it time to
it'll settle
a little bit. But
I mean, they may talk to him now, but by the time football starts, they're going to be focused on trying to win a Super Bowl, especially with the expectations that they have.
Man, guys, thank you for joining us tonight, Rod. Guys, Vashti and I have been talking about this quick blitz all quarantine, but here we go, man. And I hope that you guys are not disappointed in the content that we're going to be putting out for you guys. My shirt today, of course, is by The Black Athlete, theblackathlete.com. He has apparel.
I haven't gotten a shirt. I've been seeing these shirts. I asked Sheena when
John
she wore a jumpsuit. I just have not, but it's cool. I'm Black. I kind of was an athlete also, but it's all right.
We got you. He's actually a good friend of mine. He's a basketball coach in Detroit at Renaissance. But it was pretty powerful to see how many people at these different protests across the country had his shirts on. And it's something, and on the back of he actually does my Quick Out the Block shirts now too. And it's like powered by The Black Athlete. But on the back, he says built on sacrifices. And I think that speaks so much to the culture of not just the Black athlete, but the Black person in this country. I mean, this country is not built without African Americans. This country is not sustained. The culture is not pushed by anybody but African Americans. So, like Jalen Jalen Rose said, love us, not just our culture. So we'll see how that plays with Drew Brees and the New Orleans camp. Any parting words, Rod? You want to tell everybody how they can find you on social media?
Rod Walker Nola on Twitter, and I guess that's all they need to know.
You
better not get the Instagram
number right now.
I was waiting, I know he's not on Instagram and not telling us.
I'm on Instagram.
Like he is.
So you on Instagram, Rod?
He's a watcher on Instagram.
Are you a lurker?
It's R Walker 1906 on Instagram.
Oh, you're Alpha.
Okay.
Alpha's always gonna add that 06 somewhere in there, man. It's either gonna be an email address or Instagram, Twitter. That 06 is gonna be somewhere in there. Have mercy.
They want you to know that they're the first. But guys, thanks for rocking with us on this episode of Quick Blitz. Make sure you guys are locked in. We'll be trying to pump these episodes out to you weekly. I know you don't think there's much to talk about, but believe me, something happens in the sports world and in the culture to give us more than enough subject content. Vashti, do you have any parting words?
No, it's good to see you, and I appreciate you. I thank you for sharing that story about your sons.
Thank you, girl. I'm
important. I know. Well, I saw you over there getting misty, all soft and stuff, but it was important stuff. And thank you, Rob, for joining us and talking with us about this, and I'm looking forward to bringing more stuff.
So until next time, guys, this has been Sheena Quick,
Vashti Hurt,
and
Rod Walker. I know how I'm supposed to say myself.
Listen, everybody don't get invited into the Quick Blitz circle. You are actually our first guest.
I feel special.
Okay, so make sure that hospitality is there when we come back down to New Orleans. And I better not see Drew.
I don't think I met Rob in New Orleans. Did I meet?
Because he's like a ghost, girl. He be in and out.
I'm not cool enough, I guess. We'll see. But I'll follow him on Twitter.
Yeah.
Well, see you guys next time. It's been Quick Blitz. Thanks for joining us.
All right.